Whoa, that's loud. Today we're talking about sectionalism, and while we do, I wanted to listen to a middle school band cover 46 and 2 by Tool. Try not to get too distracted because it is awesome. Alright, today's sectionalism, the North and the South, and of course the West. First thing, what issues divided America in the first half of the 19th century? Antebellum America, this word antebellum, ante means before, bellum means war, like bellicose means to be warlike. So before the war, 1820 to 1860, you know what war we're talking about, the Civil War. Nations struggled to resolve sectional issues, producing a series of crises and compromises. What you need to remember is we had to compromise to stay together, and eventually it fails and there's war. It was about admitting new states to the Union, and again, right before the Civil War. Here's the big issue, always between balancing the number of free states and slave states, and who would have the most power in Congress. So here's your essential question, so write this down. What issues divided America in the first half of the 19th century? Did you write that down? Did you hear that girl singing? That's a middle school kid singing Tool. Anyway, 19th century actually means the 1800s. I know that's confusing, but there it is. All right, so there's the North, and that's what the North looks like. They developed an industrial economy based on manufacturing, favored high protective tariffs to protect northern manufacturers from foreign competition. That's part of your answer, industrial economy, manufacturing. The South looks like this, and that's pretty accurate too. And what they have, agricultural economy with slave-based system of plantations, there's part of your answer, in the lowlands along the Atlantic and in the deep south, and small subsistence farmers in the foothills and valleys of the Appalachian Mountains. That should sound familiar. The South strongly opposed high tariffs, which made the price of imported manufacturing goods much more expensive. So that's another issue. All right, so what were the compromises? You see dudes all like, what are we going to do? The admission of new states led to this conflict over slave or free states, so here's three compromises they tried to make. The first is the Missouri Compromise of 1820. This is Missouri right here. This is the Missouri Compromise line. You'll notice that Missouri's above it, so what does this mean? You got your slave states down here, free states up here. What this does is it draws an east to west line, so from here to here, through the Louisiana Purchase, the land up here, with slavery prohibited above that line, no slavery, slavery allowed below the line, and the exception was Missouri. So Missouri was above the line, but it could have slavery. It was the exception. Remember that, exception. Above the line, no slavery. Below the line, slavery. Further exception to make things even. Maine enters as a free state. So you got Maine comes in as free. Missouri comes in as slave. It maintains the balance. Do you get it? Get it? Okay. Missouri enters as a slave state. No more slave states, as I already said, above 3630. And this creates 12 free and 12 slave states. Next is our Compromise of 1850. This is going to be California's turn. So California comes in as a free state, while the new southwestern territory, so this land over here that we got from Mexico, remember? Yeah, they get to decide on their own. We're going to call this popular sovereignty. It kind of violates the 3630 line, except it's not technically part of the Louisiana Purchase. So we'll get back to that. All right, the last compromise is the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. So just 4 years after California comes in, they're already arguing over this. Now, this was part of the Louisiana Purchase. So this gets rid of the Missouri Compromise line by giving the people in Kansas and Nebraska the choice. So they get to vote on whether or not they're slave territories. Popular sovereignty. Popular comes from the Latin word populus, or populare, meaning people, and sovereign means to rule, so the people choose. Now, that's going to cause trouble. The results of this act, as you can see, is violence, lots of violence. I mean, you see violent things. That guy's getting shot. It says death to Yankees. Oh, you see what's coming. That guy's holding a baby upside down. Don't know. This dog is hopefully playing dead. Anyway, very violent. Produces bloody fighting in Kansas between pro and anti-slavery forces. This was called Bleeding Kansas, and really is kind of the first outbreak of the Civil War. John Brown is a guy who was part of this. He was very anti-slave. He was also kind of crazy, murdered a bunch of people, as you can tell by the picture. Looks like something's wrong. He might have suffered from a stroke at some point, but he was insane. We'll hear his name again at the beginning of the Civil War. Other thing you need to really remember, the Kansas-Nebraska Act led to the birth of the Republican Party that same year. So the Republican Party begins based on opposing slavery. So there's this, breaking news, Abe Lincoln is back. So there he is, the first Republican president, comes out of this stuff. Fini for now.